So today our goal is really to educate you about SB 553 and what is required with that. On the call today, we have Adam that will tell you about the training prevention plans. And if you stay until the end, I got a special offer for you. So make sure you guys stay with us. We will try to answer as many questions as we can today. However, please note this is a very packed call. If you do not get your questions answered, if you're a current customer, always feel free to reach out to support@EasyLlama.com. And if you're a prospective customer, feel free to go ahead and reach out to your sales representative that you've been working with, or reach out to sales@EasyLlama.com. All right. So some of you may already know me, but I am Chuck. I'm the manager of customer experience here at EasyLlama. I have over a decade of experience working with customer service and customer success teams. And for those who are not current customers, EasyLlama is an HR engine that really powers the culture and compliance through engaging workplace training, micro-learning, learning management systems, anonymous reporting, and culture insights. These solutions are really going to equip companies with the tools necessary to build that safe, inclusive, and equitable work environments. I'd love to go ahead and turn over the screen to my buddy Adam here, who's attorney from Ferber Law, and let him introduce himself, excuse me.
Well, hello everyone. My name is Adam Arce, and as Chuck said, I work at Ferber Law. We're a boutique law firm up in San Ramon, but we also have offices in the Los Angeles area. We do employment, defense side employment for employers mainly, but we are a boutique firm, so we try to be a one-stop shop for all our clients. So, if you're in the LA area, if you're in the Bay Area, we're here to help. And in my off time, I moonlight as a professor of legal research and writing at my old law school, University of California. What's now called UC Law SF, but it used to be called Hastings College of the Law. So that's just a little bit about me.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much, Adam, for being here with us today. We're very excited for us to kind of dive on into this SB 553. Before we dive into this, y'all, I do want to send a quick little reminder that this webinar does not constitute as legal advice, and we highly recommend that you consult with your company's legal counsel as you develop your workplace violence prevention plan and training. Adam here has a little disclaimer he'd like to speak with you about.
Yes, as everyone can see on the screen, the purpose of this webinar here today is to give you general guidance on this new law and what you as the employer should do to prepare for that new law. This is not meant to be legal advice, so we strongly recommend that if you have any questions about how to implement a workplace violence prevention plan within your specific job sites, that you do reach out to a legal professional for some advice and specific advice regarding your different locations. And again, the purpose of this is to give you a general informational overview so that you are better prepared to meet these deadlines July 1st, 2024.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Adam, for that little insight. Okay, guys, so now that we've gotten out the intro out of the way, let's go ahead and get started and speak with Adam on where this law actually came from.
Well, this is a new law for the general businesses, but predating this, California has already implemented a requirement for some form of workplace violence plan in healthcare and reformatory facilities. However, California is the first state to introduce such an expansive law targeting all employers rather than, these specific industries. But in a general sense, this law arises out of the employer's duty to maintain a safe and secure working environment for their employees. You may have already seen this in your businesses already through the implementation of an injury and illness prevention plan. That injury and illness prevention plan essentially led to this workplace violence prevention plan. And in fact, that's why they're so linked together within the statutory framework. But the final reason that California has decided to implement these new workplace violence requirement is that there's been a rise in intentional workplace violence incidents in the past few decades. So California is trying to be proactive to help mitigate these workplace violence incidents.
Amazing. Thank you so much for kind of giving us a little bit more of a deeper dive into that. All right, Adam. So we'd love to know, what are really the goals behind this law?
Well, the main goals here are an attempt to lower the incidence of workplace violence. But more than that, it's to give information to employees essentially train employees on how to identify potential workplace violence hazards and how to respond to potential workplace violence incidents. The overarching goal here is to provide a more safe and secure work site for both the employers, the clients, the employees, whoever's coming through the door.
I love that. Thank you, Adam. And so, besides that, why should employers really care about this just beyond fulfilling compliance requirements? What's really the importance there?
Well, let's go back to what I said earlier there. California requires that employers have provide a safe and secure work site for their employees. So you should care because you already have that obligation even before July 1st to provide a safe environment. And in a general sense, an interpersonal sense, employee morale will likely be improved knowing that there are plans in place to address potential issues. And speaking from a purely legal perspective here, I apologize, but it's going to potentially mitigate legal claims down the line. So if you want that lawyer perspective, that's the lawyer perspective there. But the humanistic perspective will be that, your employees will likely enjoy knowing that this plan is in place.
I could completely agree with that, Adam. I think all of us on this call, really, our goal is to always create a safe and inclusive workplace environment, right? And I think that's why a lot of you are current customers at EasyLlama or looking to do that. So not only is it required by law, but it really is just showing your employees that you care about their safety if there is an issue that arises. Awesome, Adam. So now let's really dive into why most of you are actually here. Does this law apply to my business? Adam, who exactly does this law apply to?
That's a great question. And I've already seen some comments in the chat. Does this apply to me if my business is fully remote? Well, not necessarily. The Workplace Violence Prevention Plan is required for workplaces with more than 10 employees that are open to the public. But however, if you have less than 10 employees and are not open to the public, then there's no need to have a workplace violence prevention plan, provided that you have an injury and illness prevention plan already in place. Now, the law does make distinctions for employees that are teleworking or from a location of the employee's choice. And that in those circumstances, those employees are not required to have a workplace violence prevention plan, and you are not required to have a workplace violence prevention plan for those employees. And assuming that your business is completely remote, meaning there's no main office, there's all employees telework from their location of the choice, then there was no requirement in that specific circumstance to have a workplace violence prevention plan because, again, you wouldn't be open to the public and it wouldn't apply to those specific remote employees. And healthcare facilities have their own specific workplace violence plan that they have to implement. So these current requirements would not apply to those types of facilities.
Amazing. And Adam, I think I did see quite a few questions coming in here on what does it mean to be open to the public? What exactly does that define? If you could maybe help us with that.
Well, this will be the first time, and what will likely be a couple times today, I'll give you the lawyer answer in that it depends. The law is not particularly clear about what it means to be open to the public. I have been counseling all my clients to say that if you are by appointment only, then there may be an argument to say that you are not open to the public, but that's a gray area. If you accept walk-ins, you certainly are open to the public. But if you never accept anyone into the office, except for other employees, then arguably you're not open to the public at that stage. Where the gray area arises is whether you accept appointments in office.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I hope that helped some of you guys coming in here for the questions around that. All right. So how does SB 553 address the issue of workplace prevention in industries with high-risk work environments, such as retail or hospitality?
Well, it addresses that through the requirements for individualized inspection of the property and also an individual assessment of the potential dangers of that retail environment or hospitality environment. You're required as part of the workplace violence prevention plan to identify workplace violence hazards particular to your industry and your job sites and train employees on those. And so it would address those specific industries by requiring a industry and worksite specific assessment of those hazards.
Amazing. Awesome. Thank you so much for providing those additional context, Adam. I really appreciate that. Diving into our next slide here, it sounds like really after kind of hearing what you're saying here is that the biggest part of this law is really planning ahead. Can you tell us more about the requirements like the workplace violence prevention plan?
Absolutely. So, as you may know, there is a deadline to implement the Workplace Violence Prevention Plan, July 1st, 2024. Um, the idea for this webinar and the idea is to be prepared ahead of time, start implementing these plans, start considering procedures for once this plan is implemented, so that once the July 1st deadline hits, you'll be off and running and able to implement your plan. And that may, and if you want to be proactive, you could have already have done an assessment of your work site for hazards and trained your employees as well. But at least right now, the idea here is that they want you to analyze your work site as it is now and identify any specific hazards. But there's also proactive requirement too to regularly train your employees, inspect for hazards, and essentially a rolling obligation to keep identifying any hazards as they occur.
Amazing. So can you maybe provide some examples of like those potential workplace violence hazards that employers should be aware of when really conducting those risk assessments for each location?
Absolutely. So I can think of no better place to get an example than the agencies that are going to be enforcing this law. So I have some examples here from the California Department of Industrial Relations. So they, at this time, have identified 8 different categories as examples, but please note that these are not limited to these examples. They could certainly be more. But the 8 types of events that could rise to the level of workplace violence hazard is the exchange of money. As you might imagine, if you're exchanging money, someone may try to take it from an employee. That's a workplace violence hazard. Working alone can be a workplace violence hazard. Someone's coming to the work site, and if someone's alone, there's a potential for an incident there. Working at night or in the early morning hours, that's another potential workplace violence hazard. The availability of valued items, such as money and jewelry, could be a workplace violence hazard. Guarding money or valuable property or possessions, like let's say you have a security firm or something to that effect, those could certainly be hazards. Performing public safety or social welfare functions in the community, working with clients, passengers, customers, or students known or suspected to have a history of violence, or employees with a history of assaults who have exhibited belligerent, intimidating, or threatening behavior to others may also be considered a workplace violence hazard. But what I want to make clear here is that we've covered a lot of different types of things in just 8 different examples, from the types of employees to the types of clients, to the types of job shifts that could lead to workplace violence. So I encourage you to take an expansive view of what could potentially be a workplace violence hazard, because at least from the current guidance, it appears that the Department of Industrial Relations is also taking an expansive view on what constitutes a hazard.
Amazing. Thank you so much for clarifying that a little bit for us, Adam. I'd love to know, obviously we're, all the admins on this call, they're looking to build this plan. How can these companies get their employees involved with really developing the workplace violence prevention plan for that location?
That is a very good question. I think the best thing employers can do to get employees involved with the plan is training. Train employees on how to identify these hazards. Train these employees on how to report these hazards to management, and how to communicate with any necessary parties once a hazard is identified. And in fact, that is part of the requirements for the workplace violence plan, is to have this training and set up a system of communication so that employees, once they note a hazard, they can report it to management.
Amazing. Thank you so much for kind of breaking that down for a little bit. And I completely agree. I think we can all on this call really appreciate the power of training, right?
Mhm.
So I know that we have a lot of people on this call here who have multiple locations within the California region. Do companies have to have different versions of the workplace violence prevention plan or training for each work location, or is it one for all?
So unfortunately, it is not one size fits all. Each specific job site should have uh, work site specific hazards, or maybe not should have, but each job site has the potential to have unique hazards. So the goal of these plans is for every employer to do an individual assessment of each job site and identify the hazards that apply to those job sites. For example, I'm sure everyone in this room has been to a Safeway or a Lucky's. Depending on where you go to that Safeway, some of the laundry detergent is locked up, like in Alameda County. Sometimes it's not locked up, like here in San Ramon. So even within that Safeway, there's two different hazards. There's two different incidents to think about. So they needed to have two separate plans. So all that to say, yes, you need to do an individualized assessment based on the region you're in and the job site specifics.
Wonderful, Adam. Thanks so much. And just for a little bit of confusion here, it looks like in the chat, or not confusion, but some clarification. People are asking if they need to incorporate the employee's feedback into the plan. I don't think that's necessarily what we were essentially saying, or can you kind of clarify on that?
Excellent question. No, you don't need to incorporate employee feedback on the plan because, to be quite clear, the plan is dictated by the statute and the SB 553, right? So employee may provide feedback on what constitutes a hazard, and certainly you should take note of when an employee gives opinions on what they believe is a hazard. But what the actual plan is required to contain is pretty much dictated by the language of the law. So you should not alter the language of the law extensively due to employee feedback because you want to make sure you're in compliance with what the law says you have to have in there.
Amazing. Thanks so much for answering that question on the fly, Adam. And it looks like Bailey is asking on that note, would only locations in California have this policy in place? Yes, Bailey, this law is just that we're talking about today is just specifically for California locations. But y'all know how OSHA is. Once it starts in California, it usually comes on everywhere else. So we do have a few orgs as well who are currently working on creating the training for other locations outside. Let me go ahead and get on to our next place. Oh, it looks like we do have a question just really quickly about co-working spaces. For instance, the company works out of a co-working space like WeWork. Who would be responsible for that plan? That would still be the company provider, or what is your thoughts there, Adam?
So at this stage, that is a little unclear, and we're entering in the territory of the guidance will evolve on this topic through the end of 2025. But as it stands right now, there is language within the statute to say if there is a quote unquote joint employee relationship, then it is the responsibility of both parties to implement a workplace violence plan that meets the requirements of the statute. So in a WeWork situation, on one hand, you would arguably need a workplace violence plan, but on the other hand, the WeWork would also need one. So it may be worthwhile if you work in one of those WeWork style situations to contact the management of that shared office space and see if they have a plan in place, because very likely they will probably have to have something in place. And if they do, then you may be able to utilize that because they've already done the work site specific inspections. Really, your obligations at that point would be to train your employees on that location specific shared space workplace violence plan.
Okay, wonderful. Thanks so much for that. With that in mind, I want to go ahead and launch a poll really quickly. And I'd love to see how many of you currently have a plan in place. All right, it looks like most of you, about 90% or so are showing currently that they do not currently have a plan in place, which is great information to see here. Let me go ahead and end this poll. Thank you all so much for participating in that. So when we're talking about all of this, obviously there are going to be some deadlines that are in place. Adam, when do all of these requirements need to be in place per the mandate?
Absolutely. So there are 3 dates to keep in mind here. The first date is that regardless of the other 2 dates here, all employers that are covered by SB 553 need to implement their workplace violence prevention plan by July 1st, 2024. So that's this year. With that said, though, there are additional deadlines within the statute itself. Cal OSHA is required to propose additional updated standards on December 1st of 2025, and Cal OSHA's deadline to adopt any revised standards are December 31st, 2026. What's key here is that the standards that you're being asked to abide by on July 1st likely will not be changed by December 1st, 2025. The purpose of that 2025 and 2026 deadline is for Cal OSHA to review the effectiveness of workplace violence prevention plans and, if necessary, implement additional requirements or additional terms that must be included in the plans. So to wrap that all up, yes, if you are required to have a plan, it should be in place and meet the requirements of the statute by July 1st, 2024. But keep in mind that by 2026, you may need to revise your plan to adhere to Cal OSHA's revised guidance.
Amazing. Awesome, Adam. Thanks so much for clarifying. Now that we've talked a little bit about what's required when these deadlines are here, want to talk a little bit about the risk. So what happens if a company is not compliant with new SB 553 by July 1st?
So you risk the potential audits or inspections by Cal OSHA, particularly if there's an employee that reports some sort of workplace violence incident or files a complaint that you do not have a workplace violence prevention plan in place.
Wonderful. And so what would maybe be involved with an audit from Cal OSHA?
So that a Cal OSHA audit or inspection, however Cal OSHA likes to characterize it, is an involved process. They can either show up unannounced to your job site, or they can notice the inspection ahead of time via letter. Likewise, it does not need to be a single inspection. Cal OSHA can and will show up to your job site more than once if it feels it needs to complete its inspection. Cal OSHA will require employers to inform all employees about the inspection. They likely will do a walkthrough inspection of the work site. They'll take photographs. They'll conduct confidential interviews with employees and managers. They'll request documents such as written programs and training records and any logs like the workplace violence log that is part of the workplace violence plan. And after all of this whole process, the inspector will then meet up with the employer and notify of any violations and fines. So as you can see, this inspection process is timely, or it'll take a lot of time to conduct. It'll require engagement not just from management, but every employee too, depending on what Cal OSHA. So as you might imagine, an inspection will have a detrimental effect on just the regular flow of business, because if you're dealing with Cal OSHA, you're not going to be able to do your day-to-day business like you would probably want to do. So that's why we generally recommend to meet these requirements to avoid the hassle of those inspections.
Amazing. I love that. And I think we'd all try to avoid that. Yeah, right. We have a lot going on, and having someone come in and inspect, we always know that ain't never fun. Awesome, Adam. Thank you so much for clarifying that with us. So according to the interpretation, Adam, by Ferber Law and many other firms, training should offer a tailored learning experience that really addresses the unique risk of each workplace. What might that include? And does that include training for each specific site?
That is correct, Chuck. You do need to have training for each specific site to address each location-specific hazards. And that training should include hazards unique to each job site. So, an example being, let's say the job site is located next to a police station or in a high crime area. Things like that would be unique to each individual job site and would need to be incorporated into the training for that job site. For that reason, your workplace violence plan, while in some specific incidents, it may be applicable to every job site you have, in reality, you should do an assessment to ensure that you've covered everything tied to that specific job site that you have.
That totally makes sense to us, Adam. And I've seen a couple of questions come in around this as well. When it comes to the workplace prevention plan training, when it's conducted, how often should that be conducted to ensure compliance with the SB 553?
Well, thankfully, the statute is a little bit more clear on this point. You are required to train any new employee about your workplace violence plan once they're hired. You are required to do annual trainings of your workplace violence prevention plan and any updates. And each time there's a new workplace violence hazard identified, you are required to train your employees on that new hazard. So let's put this in context of this July 1st, 2024 deadline. Obviously, the when the employee is hired part doesn't really apply at that point. What I would say is train all your employees on your plan once you have it in place. And then note when you did that training and make sure you have a note to train next year and the year after. And then anytime you get a new employee and anytime you get a new notice a new workplace violence hazard, make sure you train your employees on the workplace violence plan or that new hazard as appropriate.
Amazing, Adam. Thanks for clarifying that. And for you who are not current customers here at EasyLlama, we do have auto recertification with our courses, which would essentially auto assign that course within 12 months after completion, always ensuring that you are maintaining compliance at 100%. I've seen a few comments come in as well, and I'd like to understand if, let's say, if a company currently has a workplace violence prevention training, if it's customized to each location, but doesn't include those workplace violence plan details, can they still use that existing one, or do they need to go ahead and modify that to include the details from the new plan in place?
So unfortunately, no. Even if you currently have a workplace violence training, while that may help you meet the training requirements here, the statute requires that you train employees on specific topics. These topics include familiarizing employees with the workplace violence plan, how to obtain a copy, how to participate in the implementation, the definitions of the types of workplace violence contained in Labor Code Section 6401.9, how to report, understanding job-specific hazards. So as you can see, the training required by the statute necessarily requires training on the specific aspects required by the statute. For that reason, a generic training, pre-existing training may not meet all the necessary requirements of the statute.
Amazing. Thanks so much for clarifying that for us. I'd love to kind of get an idea with everyone on the call today. How many of you will have more than one location that will need to have a workplace violence prevention plan with customized training? All right, it looks like we are getting in. We're kind of right at around 50 and 40% of needing more than one. So really, really awesome to see that as well. Glad that we were able to provide that clarification that you do have to have those for each location. Thank you all so much for participating in that today with us. So I'd like to kind of take a breather, y'all. It sounds like a lot, right? Like not only do you need to plan in place for each location, but you're also required to customize the training itself on the plan for each said location. And guys, this is really where EasyLlama is able to come in here and help you ensure that there's no problemas when it comes to workplace violence training. EasyLlama does everything you need to comply with that SB 553 and more. We have things like insights, anonymous reporting, daily data sync. EasyLlama does offer the customization of the training for the specific details for each employer's workplace violence prevention plan to ensure the relevance and direct applicability of the unique working conditions faced by your employees. Not only do we cover workplace safety, y'all, but for anyone who is not a current customer, we offer over 200 different versions of courses here from many, many different suites, which kind of leads me into my next slide. Y'all know, as a manager of customer experience, I can't get away with having a webinar without a few testimonials. I want to, ensure that, guys, we have a lot of different features and functionalities that we offer with our product. We integrate with most HRISs and can provide our SCORM files to upload into your own learning management system. We have many different suites ranging from harassment, discrimination, and prevention, diversity and equity and inclusion, workplace safety, cybersecurity and data privacy, ethical practices, wellness, and soft skills. As a reminder, our content is modern and always mobile-friendly e-learning. Content is available for all types of industries and locations. We offer many industry versions around our harassment prevention. We also offer over 100 different languages and subtitles. And we're always committed to really just providing the training by focusing on a creative, positive, meaningful change in workplace cultures. We've served over 8,000 happy customers, many of whom are on this call. Hey, y'all, good to see you. But I wanted you to just share a couple of these testimonials with you to look over. As you can see, if you are on the edge of coming on over with us to EasyLlama. I also, leading into our next slide, we do offer a free workplace prevention plan template. We are going to be providing that to you today. Marissa will be dropping that in the chat for you soon. Oh, so happy to see all the We Love EasyLlama. Very happy. Yes, integration with UKG ready. We do have that as well, just to kind of jump in there on that. However, for you staying here till the end of the call with us today, you're going to get that free plan template. And we're also going to give you a 10% off of your customization for your workplace prevention and training. If you have more than one location, there will be an additional fee for each location. However, feel free to reach out to us if you're a current customer at support@easyllama.com. If you are still actively looking, feel free to reach out to your sales representative, or you can reach out to sales@easyllama.com. We can get this process started for you. Essentially, we will provide you a worksheet that needs to be completed for you to be able to for us to take that information from your work prevention plan, put that into the training itself. Currently, if you're a customer, the Workplace Violence California course is live. You are more than welcome to send yourself a demo of that course. Please keep in mind it's missing the chapters that would need to be added for the customization piece to be compliant. The current course out of the box is not compliant per what we've discussed today here with Adam. Other than that, guys, I want to thank you so much for joining us today. Marissa is going to drop off some of information in the chat with you where you can get the template. We're going to have the demo for you new customers if you'd like to view that. We're also going to have a link in there for our current clients. It's just a link to our Help Center article reminding you on how you can send a course preview from your training library to you or any of your coworkers. Once again, thank you all so much for being here. I know we had quite a few people on the call today. If you do have any questions that weren't answered today, once again, feel free to reach out to support@easyllama.com or reach out to sales@easyllama.com. Thank you all so much for being here today, and we hope to see you soon. Thank you, Adam, as well. We really appreciate you being here, my friend.
Thank you for having me.
Of course, buddy. Have a great day. You're so welcome, you guys. Thanks for being here. Looks like we had one last question come in here. Maddie, if you don't have anyone required to go in office, you are not required to assign them training to the remote employees. So that should hopefully give you an answer on that. You're more than welcome to assign them the standard course, but you would not need to do any of the customization for that. Yes, we do assist with the customizations. So that would be a fee that you would pay for us. Once we know how many locations and all of that good stuff that you have, we'll be sure to be able to provide you with this SOW and get you set up to get training. Hope that answered your question. Justin, no. So there is documents that do need to be in place. You need to have a workplace prevention plan for the actual plan. And then within the training itself, you have to actually customize the training around pieces of the plan, and they have to be trained on that. So you do need to ensure that you reach out to us if you want to use our course, and we'll get that customized for you. The price of the training, it's going to be based on whatever seat type that you currently have, whether that's single, unlimited. It will be one seat used in order to take that course. That's about it. Okay. All right, guys, it looks like we are good to go on questions. So I am going to go ahead and wrap up today's call. Thank you all so much for being here again, and I hope you all have a llama-tastic week. Have a great day.